Welcome to the Entrepreneurs Network of Michigan program. My name is Ike Engelbaum, and I'm the founder of the Entrepreneurs Network. And our mission is to interview successful entrepreneurs and professionals who are willing to share with us their ideas, their successes, and their failures. In fact, it has been wisely said, you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. And I'm a firm believer in the adage, you should learn from the mistakes of others because you'll never live long enough to make them all yourself. And today I'm pleased to have two dynamic professionals who can really be described as entrepreneurs. The big guy over here is Major General Smith III. He last served as the State of Michigan Director of Veteran Services Division in the Workforce Development Agency. He presently has been named the president of the Wolverine Project, a future alternative sentencing program for at-risk youth felons. He has served as a member of the Department of Defense Task Force on the Future Military Health Care, Washington, D.C. He is a past national president of the 75,000-member Reserve Officer Association. He retired with 34 years of military service. He has commanded from detachment to division level and served in many key staff positions at numerous levels of the Army. General Smith is a Vietnam War combat veteran and has received the Distinguished Service Medal Legion of Merit Bronze Star with Oak Leaf Cluster. General Smith is also a retired Ford Motor Company finance executive. He joined Ford in 1973 as a financial analyst after completing his MBA degree at the University of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. During his career with Ford, Smith rose through the ranks and held a number of financial and managerial positions. General Smith is the CEO of Two Star Strategic Services, LLC, which is a consulting company, and he has received an honorary doctorate of humane letters from Florida A&M University, Tallahassee, Florida. Other notable honors include being featured on the cover of Fortune magazine and Business Goes to War, profiled in the Wall Street Journal discussing leadership, and receiving commendations from the governor of the states of Michigan and Wisconsin. You really travel around, man. And with me is a fellow associate of the Rotary and the Optimist Club, and he is Agustin Arbulu. He's president of Metro Home Care, Metro Palliative Care, Metro Hospice, and Metro Personal Care, headquartered in Farmington Hills. They serve Livingston, Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties, offering a full continuum of home-based services such as skilled home health care, palliative care, and hospice care in the home setting. Augie, we're going to be interviewing General Smith.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Hello. Thank you.
And
Hello.
welcome.
Appreciate the opportunity.
And Augie, as you like to be called, right, Augie?
Absolutely, Ike.
And I had the privilege of hearing you speak at the Optimist Club as well as the Rotary. By popular demand, we asked you back. And I got news for you. We're going to ask you back again.
Oh, my goodness.
And I get chills thinking of your opening remarks when you discussed the situation when we were struck on 9/11. Can you share with us what happened and how you actually dealt with that horrible situation?
Okay, at that time, I was the division commander of the 84th Division Infantry Training, which was headquartered in Milwaukee. But we covered the states of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. It was a morning. I was in Dearborn at Ford Motor Company when I saw it on the TV monitor. And like most Americans, you do a double take when you look at the television. You know this
Right.
can't be, and you realize it is for real. And so the first thing knowing is that I had to get to one of my closest installations to issue what are called a general order, because we were technically, you think you're going to war. And my closest location was in Livonia at my 1st Brigade headquarters. And the Army definitely has a book on how to go to war. Of course, we had a great time. We couldn't find that particular book that time, but I knew there were certain things I had to do. That first day was to get some general orders out, such as what my expectation was. And so my first thing was all the facilities that were under my control in those 6 states, I ordered them to be open. I ordered all my soldiers in the combat gear minus live ammunition, because I didn't want, even though trained soldiers with live ammunition, being jumpy.
Sure.
And then I got the message out to the public affairs people about any American that didn't feel safe that night could come to one of our armories, facilities, reserve centers, and spend the night. And so therefore I didn't want someone approaching at night, someone's jittering. And plus I'm recognizing I'm in Dearborn, which has the largest Arab American population at this time outside of the Middle East. And so you didn't want someone trigger happy with live ammunition. And so I did that. Unfortunately, one of my generals didn't get the word in one of my states, and I had issued some live ammunition, and you've never heard a 2-star talk to a 1-star. But I was very, very serious about that, because this is what the reserves were supposed to be able to make Americans feel. So we had to do that, and I issued my orders, uniforms, flashlights, and everything, but I said no live ammunition for that. Then I get a call from Washington, D.C., and I understand that you're in the midst of a fire and everything's burning around you. And I'm saying, it is? Well, that's what they're saying on TV. Well, let me assure you, I am safe, because all generals, they had to know the whereabouts of all generals for
in the country.
In the country, technically. But I know I was in command of a division, so therefore I had to be. So therefore I said, well, no. It's not all burning around here. Matter of fact, it's relatively quiet. A few signs here and there, but nothing. And so we got through the misinformation of a little bit on TV, but we can understand, because in confusion there was a lot of confusion. I had troops that were out different parts who were in theory trapped on posts and things like that, because everything for the military was closed down. And so I had to try to get word to them and to assure their families. Now, I had a couple of unique units. I had the backup unit that guarded the Secretary of Defense. They were in Columbus, Ohio. They just got on the road and drove straight to D.C. No one told them what to do, okay?
Did they have already standing orders to?
It's automatic. They are the backup unit to guards the Secretary of Defense. So they just go.
They go.
I called my commander in Chicago, because we had a language battalion that spoke Farsi. So I suggest that you and you guys start thinking about packing
Come here.
and going somewhere. Well, the military and the infinite wisdom took my infantry unit out of Indiana. They were the first ones to go, not my Farsi speaking battalion. And so they went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and we did the ceremony down there, getting them off with their families and everything with the local congressman in there. Now, also, so there was a lot of confusion, and getting the information out was very key. Now, one of the other things I'd known, just before coming to the 84th Division, I commanded a military police unit, the 300 Military Police in Inkster. Well, guess what unit technically, I think, opened up Guantanamo? It was the 300th Military Police
In Inkster.
That opened up Guantanamo. And even today, in talking to their operations officer, who now is a major general, they still have things that are going on about asking about some of the situations down there. But if you remember hearing, one of the proud things we had is that in training that unit, we first understood you had to understand the tenets of Muslim and Islam. So I got my chaplain in. The other thing you had to do is be able to cook the meals, because there's nothing worse than a sick prisoner. And so my dietitians and cooks had to learn how to cook the meals that would not cause prisoners to be sick. And so by doing that, and then we were also, instead of being certified for the classes of prisoners by the American Red Cross, I asked for Geneva to come in and certify the unit. So our unit was certified by Switzerland as knowing the various categories of prisoners and things like that. And if you, to my knowledge, there has not been super major incidents out of Guantanamo. Yeah, we've had some issues, but not the major incidents that we've probably heard on other things. And so I was very fortunate in that. Well, with all this, I get a call from Washington, D.C. They say, Fortune magazine is looking for someone that's in both worlds, both the business world, I'm at Ford in finance, international job, and in the military. And your name was turned into us.
Wow.
And so they interviewed me and decided that I was to be their candidate and the one for the cover. And they said, oh, by the way, normally the president would have gone on this issue, but he'll go on the next issue. So technically, I came out on the first issue
Wow.
right after
You
that.
bumped the president. Wow.
Did the president send you a letter?
Hey, who is this guy?
But strange enough, in my interview with Fortune, they asked me the question, I'm in uniform. Do you agree with what the President of the United States is doing? Now, what am I supposed to do, a two-star general, in uniform, to a question like that?
How did you respond?
Very simple. I serve the office of the President. I take orders, and therefore, whatever is said to be done, that's what I'm going to do. I swore an oath to the United States that I would do this.
General, when you were talking about prisoners, are you just referring to prisoners in Guantanamo, or were there any detentions
Enemy combatants,
in the United States?
No,
At all, nothing.
nothing. No, this was, it was just, you learned the various categories of prisoners. It's not just
In Guantanamo?
well, that were at Guantanamo. Yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
yeah. And you so everyone is not like a armed combatant, but you can have other type of combatants
Sure.
that you had to. As I understand, were taken to Guantanamo. I did not go to Guantanamo because I got promoted to 2 stars. It was the unit I just commanded that went to Guantanamo.
I see.
And so therefore I knew the sergeant major and all the people that,
The staff that was going there.
that was doing the job.
I'm just curious. I know a limited amount of how you go through the hierarchy in a company as far as rising up there. How is it too open-ended a question in your particular position? How does the Army recognize you? Because you got so many different awards. Is there a report card that ticks around somewhere?
Oh yeah, you have an officer efficiency report like you have in most corporations. And there's a thing called top blocker. And for some reason they seem to felt, well, my contributions, which I always believe this, I took care of my people first and your people will take care of you. I learned that from my father, who was a World War II veteran with the Red Ball Express, which was an African-American unit. And so taking care of your soldiers, and they would say to me, I remember I was in Vietnam, and this one soldier says, LT, you work for us, so we're not going to let nothing happen to you. So when you're taking care of your people are going to make sure that you're all right. They're going to be your early warning system. And that's a major principle of leadership that a lot of people forget. They want to get out in front of everybody instead of standing up front in everybody and leading and letting them be your early warning system.
And that's really true in successful entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship.
You have to take care of the people around. They're what make you, right?
They're what make you. They're in many cases closer to the situation and can give you the early warning signs. This is not going to work in this community, or this may work in this business venture. And in the case when you're fighting war, I've been in the jungle here. You may want to consider this. They will vest with you the ultimate power to make the final decision. That's if they believe, as I did in Vietnam, say to my men, and I had to do this one day. It says, look, my responsibility is to get you back. not to make glory for myself on your blood. I swore an oath to your parents that I'm going to get you back. So that's my. But in war, we don't necessarily have a democracy. My orders will stand. If you're told to do this, you're going to do this. A leader has to also use his authority judiciously and very prudent. But they also got it. They also knew that I was very serious, that we weren't voting on my orders in the middle of a war, because no one told the enemy not to shoot us.
So you laid out some clear expectations of the people that you worked with, so they knew exactly what was expected of them, and they lived up to it.
Clear expectations, but the other key part of clear expectation is helping them understand how they fit into the big picture.
Isn't that true in any organization?
Whatever the organization is, especially today. Just telling someone to go over here and twist a widget, and don't give them an idea of why they're twisting a widget. After a certain amount of time, they begin to wander away mentally.
Right.
But if you say your widget is going to fit into this clog, that's going to drive this machine,
right.
and I'm saying to you, what you're doing is just as important, can be just as important up the train, then you're going to feed the machine. So that principle of military leadership, that principle of leadership works in any business.
Sure.
You let your employees know what the expectations are, but how they fit into the picture. When you clearly set that vision out, then you can get buy-in much quicker. And then if they don't live up to the expectation, because as you do have to relieve people or tell people that we think we better make another alternative here. It is clear to understand. The system can see that that person knew what they were supposed to do and they didn't do it.
Right.
So therefore, you don't necessarily get the repercussions of you did this against me, you were picking on me against that. The defense has to be you didn't fulfill your job, and you've got many times their peers saying, you did screw this up. The boss did tell you what to do.
In your role as a commander, and it's all about leadership and management, what could you expand or define? What are the one or two areas that's the most challenging for someone from your perspective?
Well, you've got ethics and communications as the other two tenets of leadership.
Yes.
Ethics is every day, looking in the mirror, reflecting back as you're looking through that mirror. Say, yesterday, is there anything I'm going to be reading about when I walk out of this room after getting dressed that I should be ashamed of or afraid of? And that's corporate image, military leadership, personal leadership, even in dating. As you know, you're dating someone, you just met this person and you want to make sure you've made a favorable impression. Did you do something stupid? So that ethics that drives you.
Is that, would you say, with that is a degree of transparency, a high degree of transparency?
Oh, definitely. Ethics has to have the transparency. As I said, you looked into that endless mirror.
And see yourself,
and see yourself as you are, and what did you do, and whatever you can face, and you hit it right on. The other thing is communicating, and it's communicating clearly in a language, whether it's physical, sign, or whatever, that people can clearly understand what you're trying to articulate. Now, we're in a social media world right now, so the communication pattern is a little different than the verbal, sometimes straight-to-straight talk, or the written word on a piece of paper or a note.
The texting, right?
Now you're in texting. And in texting, when you spell you with a U, your English grammar, and that is a challenge. And I say that's going to be a challenge as we continue on some of these short texting. But communication, do you get the message through? But in your communication, you've got to figure out a way to get a buyback, whether it's a nod, I understood what you're saying, or an acknowledgement. Because many times people communicate, pontificate, but people's minds are somewhere else. And so you don't know if you're connecting.
Right.
And so you've got to somehow get a recognition. Now, when I do some talks last time, I did some jokes and some other things to make sure my audience was still there.
Right. And you instill humor, which, by the way, I pick up some really almost universal types of strategies to be successful as an entrepreneur. Number one, you have to prove that you really care. The person has to know that you really care about them. And then the other C, the communication. And one of my mentors was Zig Ziglar, who was looked upon as the father of motivation. And he must have repeated in almost every talk he ever gave that whenever you're communicating and it's something important, you ask the person that you just gave a message to, now tell me, what did you understand that I said? And hear what that person says, because they'll say something completely off. And that's what probably has led to a great deal of your success.
Well, yeah, communication is the ability to listen effectively versus having your mouth in gear to speak when someone else is talking to you.
Right.
So that is
You have to
good.
put the gear in the proper gear.
Now, another aspect of communication that I talked about is, have you joined professional organizations or organizations that are working towards the same goal you are, or have you read their literature and stuff like that? Because it's proven that the top 10% get to the top by understanding what's going on in their professional organization stuff, whether they're reading the journals and stuff like that. So yes, when I was coming to the mill, I read my Army Times and the Air Force Times and things like that, just to keep a sense of what was going on. And then of course you had your news influence, and you got to filter that. So professional organizations and the reading the journals are a way of communicating that you're interested in the field, but it's also building knowledge, and it allows you to talk effectively about whatever you are asked to sometimes to talk about. Another thing in communication is, what was your purpose for being put in front of this audience? How do you've got to let that audience know why you're there speaking to them. A challenge can be sometimes a non-veteran trying to speak to an all-veteran group. Now that group may say, well, they can't teach me anything because they've never been there, done that. So sometimes, okay, how does that non-veteran connect to a veterans group? So those are the type of things you have to learn in communication. So when you're in business as an entrepreneur and you want to sell to many diverse entities right now, you have to say, how can I connect to this entity so they want my services, my product? And again, that's leadership, but that's also communication, getting out there. The other part of communication, which I feel is very strong, you just got to keep good personal records. And whether it's that invoice or that bill from before, but communication is also the written word. So you got to keep very good records. And keeping records means you have to have this thing called organization.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're talking about communication, how vital it is to also use that magic word of listen. And when you get involved more in the hierarchy of the company or in the Army, you also have to have that ability to appreciate how is that going to help that person and whatever goal they have. So there's so much involved in knowing how you can help that individual. And what's that line from the Music Man? You got to know your territory. You got to know where you're at.
Another key piece of communication, a lot of people really miss it. And we always heard the horror stories at Christmas party. Educate your spouse or significant other when you're going into a group or you're speaking about who's in the room and what's going on.
Right.
How many spouses have led to the downfall because they said the wrong thing at the wrong place?
Right.
So communication is educating someone that might be asked a question of you so that they have just a general awareness.
That's very important, what you're talking about, because you're really talking about these partnerships that are created to allow you to be most effective. And in this case, it's your significant other, your spouse, who oftentimes can lead you to advance further or can hold you back. Right?
Just think, if they go to the bathroom, someone may be in the bathroom and says, oh, your husband's speaking about this, blah, 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 blah. What do you know?
Right.
And that may be your boss's boss.
Exactly.
You don't know that.
Right.
So
never-
educating, so part
yeah.
of communication is educating someone is that close to you, just the general awareness
Right.
versus just letting them
Right.
fend for themselves.
Right. Right.
We've seen it. We've seen it happen, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
when I
right.
talk about the communication, I didn't just talk about listening and speaking. I threw in some things about the written, and all that is important in business, keeping the records and stuff like that. An entrepreneur has to have the ability to do all of that.
Right.
Can I
and
take
that's
you
been-
back a little bit?
Unfortunately, we've practically run out of time.
Oh, have we?
And it goes fast when you're having fun, and I can't help but stress how important it is to have that significant other or partner on board, and that you work together as a team. We'll have to continue our conversation on another visit, because I only have enough time for my parting thought, which I like to leave this program with, which is that if you really want to get anything done in life, you'll find a way. And if you don't, you'll find an excuse. And there's no excuse for not achieving your dreams and goals in America, because it's the greatest country in the whole world. Remember, a goal is just a dream with a deadline.